It's another Friday and we're here again.
Interesting.
Yes, definitely. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning out there. Nothing really different from the other days of the week.
Except that we're anxious for the elections to come and go.
Exactly, except that.
That thing is putting our life on a pause.
And hopefully nothing will actually come up, to stall the elections further. Good morning and thank you for joining us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV and we're live at the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman.
And I am Sunday Michael Ogo. It's a beautiful Friday morning and Jumat Karim to our Muslim brothers, and for our Christian brothers who are fasting, we hope you have a fairly decent day.
Definitely. All right, so today on the show we have very, very interesting stories and topical issues to actually discuss. But before then, let's move on to the highlights at this hour.
And moving on to the highlight, Gombe NSCDC deploys 850 officers for Saturday polls.
Kaduna killings. Buhari orders manhunt of culprits.
And parties warn INEC against beavers problems. Repeat.
All right, now let's take a look at the details of the stories. About 850 officers have been deployed by Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps in Gombe State ahead of the governorship and state assembly elections scheduled for Saturday, March 18. Now, a statement from NSCDC Public Relations Officer DSC Saad Bahari quoted the state commandant Achir Abraham as giving the breakdown while addressing area commanders and divisional officers at the command's headquarters in Gombe State. Abraham charged the officers to maintain utmost professionalism during and after conduct of the poll. Now, he noted that deployed officers were expected to contribute to the smooth process of the poll, adding that sanctions await those who default. Excerpts from the statement reads that he stressed that they're not there to ensure adequate protection of lives and property, especially critical national assets and infrastructure, during and after the exercise in collaboration with other security agencies. Now, our correspondent reports that out of the 12 political parties contesting the gubernatorial or governorship election in the state, 8 on Monday have endorsed Governor Muhammad Yahaya as the candidate. 5 others on Thursday adopted AA candidate Brigadier General Nuhu Mila, while Labour Party's Keftin Amuga, New Nigerian Party's Kamisu Mailan Terki, and People's Democratic Party's Muhammad Barde are running the race solo without being in any form of alliance.
And moving on, the President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday ordered security agency to swiftly arrest and punish perpetrators of the recent attack in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State that left at least 10 people dead and several others injured. In a statement signed by President's Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, Buhari said the return of terrorist attack in the region was shocking. The statement claimed that the President condemned the renewed terrorist attack, which happened around 9 p.m. on Wednesday when government reportedly raided the Langson community in the Atiap Chiefdom of Zango Kataf, killing over 10 and injuring many others. The attackers who shot sporadically also looted a shop in the area before they were repelled by mobile policemen. It is one of the several attacks by armed militias that have killed thousands of Kaduna South residents in the past 7 years. The President commiserated with family of the deceased, saying, "My deepest condolences to the families of those in this horrific attack, and may their souls rest in peace."
All right, and finally, the Independent National Electoral Commission on Wednesday began the distribution of sensitive materials for Saturday's governorship and House of Assembly elections. Also on Wednesday, political parties warned the electoral body against a repeat of the bimodal voter accreditation system glitches and other hitches that characterized the February 25 presidential and National Assembly polls. The complaints about the conduct of the elections resulted in the rejection of the outcome of the polls by the parties which challenged the result in court. Now, findings by the Commission took delivery of the ballot papers and result sheets from the Central Bank of Nigeria in Lagos on Wednesday. The exercise led by INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner for Lagos State, Mr. Olusegun Agbaje, and the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, Idowu Owohunwa, was monitored by various stakeholders. Now, the INEC Commissioner explained that out of the 18 political parties that registered in the country, only 17 fielded candidates to participate in the House of Assembly election in the state, noting that parties had held a series of meetings with INEC in ensuring peaceful conduct of the election.
That's it on the highlight. Moving on now to our packages for you. This morning, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has been charged to address issues of malfunctioning of the Bimodal Voters Accreditation System, BVAS, and the late arrival of electoral materials and officials to polling unit, which caused delay in the commencement of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. Stakeholders gave the charge at a one-day meeting convened by INEC to brainstorm on how to ensure credible, transparent, peaceful, and successful conduct of the 2023 governorship and State House of Assembly elections in Zamfara State. The report.
Concerned stakeholders pointed out noticeable lapses in the last presidential and National Assembly elections and want the Independent National Electoral Commission to address them in Saturday's governorship and States Assemblies elections. They said the last-minute creation of new polling units left many voters confused while trying to locate their polling units, adding that the late commencement of the election dragged the process into the night in some parts of the state. Other issues which the stakeholders harped on were the lack of prompt response of security agencies to distress calls, indiscriminate usage of result sheets, lack of capacity of ad hoc staff to operate the Bimodal Voters Accreditation System BVAS, as well as late arrival of electoral materials at polling units, among others.
We need these numbers to be on your social media handles, to be printed and submitted to all political parties and the civil society organizations so that we can contact you immediately.
We have discovered the indiscriminate usage of certificate copies or replacement copies of result sheets, especially here in the state capital.
We are here together. What Nigeria's duty and safety goes for will assure the INEC is total and complete cooperation, working cooperation.
The Joint National Association of Persons Living with Disabilities, PWLD, reminded INEC of the promise to provide materials that will aid the deaf and visually impaired persons to vote in the 2023 general elections. The group said it, however, observed that the Commission did not make those materials available in most polling units during the presidential and National Assembly elections.
To appreciate the security forces in collaboration with the Commission for creating an easily accessible environment for our people with disability to cast their votes. So we really commend them for that.
The INEC National Commissioner in charge of Kebbi, Sokoto and Zamfara states, Muhammad Kala, commended security agencies and residents of the state for their support towards the peaceful and successful conduct of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. The INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner in Zamfara State, Babura Ahmed, said the Commission has noted the lapses recorded in the last elections and is poised to improve on them during the conduct of the governorship and state assemblies elections.
Is to thank the people of the state, the INEC, the security agencies for having a very good and welcome election that has occurred during the presidential election.
The general consensus at this stakeholders meeting is that the security agencies should this time go beyond the usual assurances that it will provide adequate security and protection to voters by acting swiftly to respond to distress calls, which was observed as a challenge with security operatives in the presidential and National Assembly elections.
National Population Commission says its digital housing and population census, billed to be conducted later in May this year, will be error-free. Now, the Commission's Director of Public Affairs, Isiaka Yahaya, says the Commission is doing everything technologically possible to make the 2023 digital census acceptable, meeting the best international standards. Noel Sampson reports.
Population census was initially planned to hold in March, but postponement of election left government with no option than to shift the dates to May this year. Information and data obtained from census assists the government to plan for its citizens, hence reasons why it has to be error-free. Isiaka Yahaya is Director of Public Affairs of the National Population Commission, and he explains why the exercise must be error-free.
We are going to conduct a digital census, like you have rightly observed. What that means is that we are going to limit human interference in the census process. The data will be collected using what we call the personal digital assistant, in which responses from respondents will be captured automatically into the tablet and will be transmitted for processing to the server, and then further analysis and evaluation. And the way it is done is that, the sources of error in census are manifold. It can be undercounting, overcounting, and enumeration, double or multiple enumeration. The methodology we are going to adopt, will make it possible to eliminate all these sources of errors.
He also explained technologies deployed by the Commission to make the first digital census in Nigeria.
We have divided the whole landmass of Nigeria into enumeration areas that can be covered by a pair of enumerators. And also, the EAD, or what we call the enumeration area, has been done in such a way that every building, has been captured. So on the census day, the question that will be asked is that if any house is not counted, it must be accounted for. So it will be possible in the tablet with the enumerators, all the houses have been listed, and they must ensure that they go to all those. That also means that they cannot go to one household twice.
The last official population census in Nigeria was conducted in 2006, and since then, successive administration could not conduct another exercise, recommended after 10 years. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Still staying with politics, women aspirations to occupy political offices fell short of expectation after the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. Involvement and participation of women in Benue State is described as discouraging. Jimmy Azandi reports that the 35% affirmative actions meant to encourage women participation has not been met in the state.
Women have been advocating for equal political rights in a male-dominated political environment like Nigeria. However, the number of women in elective positions went down after the presidential and National Assembly elections in spite of the sustained advocacy over the years.
We're still far behind the 35% affirmative action that we expect. We're far behind. I'm not very sure we can boldly say we've reached 10%. Usually what makes us feel we're doing well is when it comes to appointive positions. Sometimes they just give some women some appointments and we think that balances it out. No, I don't think it does. For me, women are not doing very well when it comes to elective positions. I think there's still much to be done. I think political parties need to seriously look into the issues of bringing women on board. I think as a society in Benue State, we still also need to encourage more women to come out and, participate.
Some said the men will have to do some more at encouraging the women to participate in the electoral process. To this group, women participation is still hampered by cultural impediments.
So far, from the results we have gathered in these 2023 elections, especially as regards the National Assembly elections, we haven't really seen much women elected into those offices yet. Culturally, people are not really giving opportunity to women to participate yet. People still see women as not really culturally strong enough to to participate in politics. So they are not given the opportunity by the majority of the society, even women themselves.
They mentioned some of the benefits of women involvement in the political process in the country.
If you look at homes, there are very good home managers. And for that, a lot of women that have excelled, you discover that they do well. And it is high time that we start giving that opportunity to them so that our country will become better. We have tried enough men and it has not helped us. So at least we need to give that chance, that opportunity.
Only 2 women won out of the 14 seats of the National Assembly from Benue State.
All right, one of Nigeria's election monitoring group, Yaga Africa, fears that low voter turnout inducement and possible violence could undermine the Saturday's governorship and state assembly elections in most states of the federation. Now, the election monitoring group will deploy what it calls parallel results tabulation technology in Benue, Delta, and Kano. Also tasked the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to address challenges observed during the last presidential election with a view to building electoral confidence. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports.
Nigerians will again go to the polls on Saturday to elect governors and State House of Assembly members in the concluding part of the 2023 election cycle. Preliminary findings by Yaga Africa highlights possible voter inducement, threats to security, rising ethnic and religious tension, and possible low voter turnout because of declining confidence amongst voters and lingering cash scarcity-induced hardship.
Yaga Africa received reports of the distribution of money and food items by supporters of the APC in Bakia and Chogul, Tarka, LGA, Benue State. The APC and the PDP representatives were seen collecting voters' bank account details in Damaturu and Potiskum LGAs in Yobe State to make wire transfers ahead of the elections. From Akwa Ibom, Yaga Africa also received reports that the PDP youths in Ibeno local government area were given a cash inducement of 1,000 naira, 1 million naira after they had endorsed a candidate on Sunday, March 12, 2023.
As it sets to deploy parallel result tabulation technology in Benue, Delta, and Kano states to track voting, the Election Observer Group is also worried over arms buildup in some volatile states.
Light weapons, and we did identify the number of local governments where our reporters have filed in report that light weapons are already in circulation. So we don't have to tell you what that means. But our statement is very clear around those. And there are other states that we have also identified.
The group recommended that INEC must improve on the identified lapses in the last presidential election and ensure proper and timely communication with stakeholders with a view to building citizens' confidence in the electoral process. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
And that's it on our packages this morning. We'll take a quick breather. When we return, the newspaper headlines will be ready.
That's great.
necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Daybreak on Trust TV. It's now time for the newspaper review, and we will be taking a look at stories on the front pages of the national dailies. We begin with Daily Trust this morning. The lead story talks on ahead of tomorrow's polls. Security operatives on red alert in states. We also have riders that says Peace Committee worried over violence, intimidation, threats. Don't kill people you want to lead, says Jonathan. Will prosecute staff found compromising standards, says INEC. Now, you can find details of this story on pages 4, 11, and 34. And there's a pictorial of police being deployed for the elections as well. Now, moving on to more stories beside that pictorial. 17 die in Kano auto crash. We also have Finance Minister urges incoming administration to raise VAT to 10%, and that's from the 7% that it is at the moment. Details can be found on page 23. Girl 6 mistakes petrol for kerosene, burns self while learning to cook. A really sad one. It's on page 20 on Daily Trust newspaper. Now at the top of the page there, 4 feared killed in El Rufai's convoy, Shiite clash. We also have IPOB ranked world's 10th deadliest group, and how I will form my cabinet, says Tinubu. And on the bottom of the page, National Assembly leadership, why we're delaying zoning till after governorship polls, says Adamu. Riders here says we won't allow repeat of 2015 scenario in NAS, and why we suffered setbacks in our strongholds. These are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
We move on now to the Nigerian News Direct. The major story there, no appointment for anyone based on religion in my government. And that is coming from the President-elect Tinubu. Vows to assemble competent young Nigerians, affirms commitment to double-digit GDP growth, food security, strong manufacturing base, reserve SGF Chief of Staff for Christians. Group tells President-elect. And you have there the photo of the Chief Executive Officer, executive jets, says Madibo, and Chairman Quit Aviation there with the Executive Governor of Ogun State alongside the Group CEO Access Bank Corporations on a courtesy call there. We have deployed enough personnel for polls in River State's AIG. And Airport Abiodun host aviation investors project Ogun as agro-processing hub in West Africa. And driver crushes 2 siblings to death in Lagos. To other story, NCC telcos not responsible for failed bank transactions. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper next. And we have the lead story that says Nigeria needs competence, not national unity government, says Tinubu. And the writers here says Tinubu insists religion, ethnicity won't influence appointments. President-elect back Supreme Court on Naira, says Atiku. Obi's legal actions good for democracy. No going back on legal action. President election created tension, says LP and NPP. At the top of the page there, leadership not by force, says Jonathan. On polls, Lagos, Kano, Rivers governorship candidates face tough battles. Threats ahead Saturday, polls worrisome, says Abdusalami. And we have, beside the nameplate there, states insist on contempt charge against Malami Emefiele. On the right, we also have more stories on the footnote there. IPOB rejects 10th deadliest terror group ranking. 3 feared killed as party supporters clash in Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, and unions protest airport concession, sue minister, FAAN. And these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
Moving on to the Nation newspapers, right there at the top of the name marks, cash crisis, States reject CBN's partial compliance. 10 state governors more contempt suit against Emefiele. AFDB partners target $618 million, 6 million jobs for Nigerians. To other stories, expect a competent cabinet, Tinubu assures Nigerians. Youth, women to get big roles. Economic revival tops priority. And there you also find a picture of the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, with residents and supporters during a drive-through rally in Alimosho local government area yesterday. To other stories, presidency defend election integrity, and Obi, it is not credible. We have some polls and figures there. 28 states would be going in for the governorship elections tomorrow. There will be 993 House of Assembly seats for grab. And then in the supplementary election, we have 8 senatorial districts to be completed, as well as 33 House of Rep seats also up for the grabs. Dicey race for governors, assembly seats. That's the other headline there on the front page. And finally, we have bandit kill 4 soldiers, orders. Nigeria, UK sign MOU on tax revenues. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at Blueprint newspaper. The lead story says CDD on Saturday polls, disruptions likely in Rivers, Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto and Lagos. Predicts violence in Delta, Enugu, Zamfara, Adamawa, Cross Rivers 2. 3 feared killed in APC, PDP bloody clash in Ibadan. Elections not do or die affair. Jonathan cautions politicians. IGP orders movement restriction, restates ban on VIPs aids. Details of this story on page 6. We have on Naira scarcity. Naira scarcity persists as banks ration available cash. CSO's lawyers petition Buhari, demand Bowers probe, sack. Call for EFCC's removal satanic, says Northern Group. And Professor firms docked for. Okay. All right, so let's move on to more stories. Now, supplementary elections hold in Sokoto, Edo, Yobe, 12 others. Vibrant, successful SME sector, key to economic development, says Buhari. Oshun Gubo funds, let's meet in court, Lukman tells Omisore. FCT Senate, Aduda vows to challenge Ireti Kingibe at tribunal. And at the top of the page there, we already took this particular story. But then these are some of the stories on Blueprint newspaper.
And to Business Day, the paper with a different niche, concentrating on the business development around the country. The major headline here is expectations high as election holds Saturday. And you have there a picture on the front page which has Segun Adeni, former editor this day, Oforie Aigboje, Executive Director, Vice Chair, Ike Aigboje Foundation, and Aigboje Ike Aigboje, Chairman, Aigboje Foundation. And of course, we have there the South African Ambassador or High Commissioner of South Africa to Nigeria, as well as Chris Stones, co-chair, Daybreak School of Government, at the closing ceremony of the Ike Public Leaders Program class of 2022, right there on the front page. And to other stories, cash crunch, inflations, saying driving MPC's decision next week. Why human interference is behind INEC's server crash. And to the last story there, FG failure to revamp health centers threatens millions of children.
All right, let's take a look at first news. We have from the top of the page there, presidential election results shocked many, says Garba Shehu. Presidential election, PDP, Atiku deny withdrawing petition. Now, on elections, don't kill people you want to lead, Jonathan warns politicians. And tribunal, I have confidence in judiciary, says Peter Obi. And the lead story talks about the president-elect and what his cabinet will look like. And on the footnotes there, I hope next administration will continue our anti-corruption war, says Buhari. Oba Akiolu rejects Rhodes Viva, says Sanwo-Olu will win. And Oyo Guba poll, we have no anointed candidate, says Olubadan in council. And again, violence erupts in Benue, 10 killed, property destroyed.
And to our last paper this morning, Leadership on Friday, with that headlines there, 14 states in dramatic governorship contest. It's the fight to finish in Lagos, Bauchi, Kaduna, Gombe, Delta, Adamawa, Rivers, Kano, Ebonyi, Enugu, Ogun, Oyo, Sokoto, Nasarawa. 11 governors in race for second term. INEC, Army, warns personnel, police restricts movement for 18 hours. You have pictures there of some of the states where the governors are in for some very keen contest. You have there Abdurazak of Kwara, Governor Sule of Nasarawa, Sanwo-Olu of Lagos, Mohammed of Bauchi, Abiodun of Ogun State, and of course Governor Yaya of Gombe. And to other stories, aviation workers sue FG over proposed concession of airport. Naira fuel scarcity, inflation pushed 24 million Nigerians into hunger. That's according to the FAO. And APC crisis, I owe you no apology. Go to court, Lukman dares Omishiri. And competence will be basis for my appointment, Tinubu. And to other stories directly below the name marks, PMB to successors, sustain my anti-corruption fight. And presidential poll, I will win in court, says Obi. These are the major stories on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. We are now joined in the studio by our regular in-house analyst, in-house if you like, Nuruddin Abdallah, the editor of 21st Century Chronicle. It's a pleasure to see you.
It's my pleasure. Good morning.
Blazing and magnificent this morning.
Good morning, Dr.
Welcome. I am tempted to think that Nuruddin will be standing for the governorship election.
It looks like one.
But clearly the sales of form have closed and it is late in the day. But not late, an ambition to have anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the elections tomorrow. Yeah. It appears the 1 week extension has sort of doused the kind of tension we saw last week when it appears we had not gotten over the presidential election at a time when the last week election was to happen, and all of that tension somehow seemed to have because Nigerians are at a place now perhaps where they think we need to be alive before we think about a governorship election. Tell us what you think about the build-up to this election, and what are the pitfalls, whether it's INEC or as citizens, we have to avoid to come out unscattered after this election?
So I think like the March 28th, the February 25th presidential National Assembly elections, there are certain factors that will determine the success or otherwise of tomorrow's governorship of national elections. Even though, you know, there is a slight difference from the one we had before, excuse me, and the one we are going to have tomorrow, because, you know, they say politics is local. Tomorrow, Nigerians will vote the representative that will represent them at the state level, as well as their governors. So not all Nigerians care about who the president is or who their senator is. Every state has just 3. But there are states with almost 1 local government with 2 representatives at the state legislature. And the governor, who they see every day, every other day. The success or otherwise of tomorrow's polls is a function of 1, the readiness of INEC. You know, during the February 25th election, you know, they got a very fair marks, you understand, in terms of preparedness. But we hope by tomorrow, all those lapses recorded during the last election will be drastically minimized. It can't be flawless. Yeah. And secondly, the impartiality of the security agencies. Their non-partisanship, professionalism, in no small measure, contributed to the success of the presidential election. I think there are some pockets of reports, but largely, particularly from what we had in 2019, 2015, 2007, 2003, and the likes, we didn't see security agencies thumbprinting ballot papers or running away with ballot boxes or giving cover to talks and whatever. Like we see what happened in Kogi during the last governorship elections, or what happened in Ikiti, during the 2014 and the likes. So, and again, the minimal use, let me use this, the minimal use of cash in particular to buy votes during the presidential election, contributed immensely in allowing the will of the people to triumph. You understand? Cash crunch, thanks to MFLA, thanks to the president, it was clear that it's the lack of cash in circulation, helped in greater measure because those in power, the governors, the senators, the House of Reps members, both parties, you understand, even though those in power, largely have more access to those, but the absence of cash, they don't, and even the transfer at that time, was horrible. So it helped in no small measure in allowing the will of the people to triumph, at least in majority of the areas we recorded. Okay. So we hope that...
just to put your conversation in context, a number of the papers are really showing that some states, it's going to be a battle to the finish. They have leadership, for instance, had pinpointed 14 of those states where they feel that there's going to be a major contest. And from the picture I have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, just one of them is a PDP governor. Why do you think these states, for instance, why do you think a Nasarawa or a Lagos or a Bauchi or even a Gombe would be a place to look out for in this election?
I told you earlier that election is local. So what happens tomorrow will be determined by so many factors. One, what happened, the result recorded during the presidential election is a big factor. Like in Kano, the ruling party lost. In Kaduna, the ruling party, after 8 years, they got only 3 or 4 House of Reps members. They lost all the 3 senators. They lost about 2 senators to even Labour Party, and the remaining 10 or 11 to the opposition PDP. Equally in Lagos, where the president-elect came from, he lost his state to Labour Party. If you talk of Makinde in Oyo, the confusion there is just too much to bear. He's in he's a PDP, G5. Now there is APC. He's within the threshold of the president-elect. What have you? If you go to Gombe, PDP won Gombe, thereby threatening the chances of the ruling party's governor to come back and what have you.
With 2 former governors picking Senate seats.
Senate seat and what have you. And even the former governor that won, who is in the same party with the governor, his allegiance is not clear because throughout the last 4 years, he has never been on the same line with them. Go to Zamfara, for instance. Despite the banditry, the Governor Motewale, is having a rough battle with another solid candidate in terms of resources and what have you. Same thing, Kano. The NNPP presidential candidate got almost 1 million votes. He was trailed by the APC's 500 and what have you. So now, most of these governors who lost out during the presidential elections because they don't want to be irrelevant. Remember, only 1 out of about 10 governors that sought Senate seats won. Abubakar Sani of Niger. Almost all the rest were thrown out. So now they want to be relevant. So you have to bring your state. If, for instance, Ganduje lose out in Kano, what becomes of him?
Oh, well,
you understand? What becomes of El-Rufai if he could not install Obasani as his successor? So we are looking at the future. Since they can't go to the Senate, at least let them control their state so that they will have a bargaining chip of the federal. With the president-elect saying it's a government of national competence, not national unity. So quota system and what have you maybe will not come to play. So you have to really work and seem to be working to ensure that your state is in your kitty.
Everything you've actually said, you know, this governorship elections promises to be a very, very interesting one.
Definitely.
We'll wait to see that. And you're talking about the president-elect talking about, you know, running a government of competence and not national unity. Do you think he is going to deliver? Because he said he's going to get people with ability, performance as prerequisites of appointment in his government as well.
I think nobody is doubting his ability to work what he said yesterday, and particularly from where we are coming from. You know, it took the current President Buhari about 7 months to assemble one of the most, I don't want to use the adjective, but we all know. People with zero CV in whatever capacity. They had no track record in public administration or even from the private sector. And they have some of them, they have spent 8 years doing nothing, but the president is not complaining. And some of them came.
Maybe the presidency is a scorecard we don't see.
Hey, you can't be faster than your shadow, let's say. A minister cannot be faster than the president.
Okay, you can't outshine your master.
No. That's the law of power, you know, Robert Greene. You know, it's a great mistake. But now, we see what Tinubu did in Lagos, even after leaving power. I think if you look at the political algorithm in the country, there is no single politician that has mentored people that excel in various fields of endeavor, like Swaji, for instance. So what he said yesterday is expected. It is your CV that will speak for you. And I don't think Aswaju will assemble a team that whatever you do, right or wrong, you remain there till the next election season. I don't know. There should be scheduled from his background, from what we see. If you measure up, you continue. If you don't measure up, you get the boot. I think what he said yesterday is something that Nigerians are aspiring to be. At least let merit count. He's a politician. There are some political considerations. But Mr. Sunday, if you are giving me a candidate, please give me somebody that we can celebrate. Don't give me a retiree. Even in the civil service, he was a failure. Then you exhume him, dust him up, and he will make him one minister that, you know, he will be clueless and what is it.
It's interesting. I like the choice of the word exhume with parentheses. But if you want explanation, you can meet Nuruddin Abdullah after this. But one area gives me worry. Abdul Salam is saying threats ahead of Saturday polls worrisome. That's from the Punch newspaper. And Jonathan is re-echoing that leadership is not by force. You can't kill the people you want to rule. We have seen flashes of a possible crisis from states where supporters are behaving like it's a do or die election. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think from Oyo, like you mentioned, Kano, my state, for instance, you know, in the last election, the presidential election, you see some politicians even coming out with guns in broad daylight. So, like I said earlier,
some issuing threats on video.
Some issuing threats, and you know, so the impartiality and professionalism of security agencies will go in a greater way in nipping in the bud this crisis. And at the same time, politicians who are bent in perpetrating violence should be held accountable. And thankfully, even though this is the governorship elections, we have governors, their family members, or some top National Assembly, or even bureaucrats. Thankfully, the US is watching, the UK is watching, Canada and what have you. So it is confirmed that you have perpetrated violence and what have you. Your visa, all the loot. Confiscated. You understand? And you know, if the US decides, even Dubai you can go. Maybe you'll end up going to Chad or Niger Republic. So I think that's another thing. And for Nigerians, just like they did the other one, you can change so many things through non-violent means. An Okada man won House of Reps election. He retired a 4-time lawmaker. You understand? Come to FCT, for instance. Eritrea has been going for this seat for only God knows when. How long? She retired. Somebody, a very popular one, who has spent 16 years at the National Assembly. So let people not be deceived, because you know some people want to just, I can't win this place, so let me start violence so that a person acquires. People should resist that. Whatever they do, we want to vote. We want our vote to count. So if Nigerians tread that part, you know, just like we had during the presidential elections, this can people, there are so many bad eggs that need to be thrown out.
All right. Well, away from elections and politics, let's take a look at, you know, how the Nigerian people are actually faring. The FAO has actually come out with a report saying that the naira, fuel scarcity, and also the inflation has pushed 24 million Nigerians into hunger. What do you think about this?
Yeah,
this
you know,
number?
Politics has taken over everything. But Buhari is already a lame, he has already transited into now a lame dog president, you understand? And the president, we believe, yeah, because from his antecedents, that he is someone that will hit the ground running. You understand? No, we are not expecting him to spend 5 months, you know, before taking over and deciding. So I think all these micro and macroeconomics indices, you know, will be tackled, because what we just need policies, clear policy directions. There are things that can be done with just policy statements.
Not body language.
No. That's what we are here today. You know, the body language was there for just 2 weeks, right? Police in Abuja stopped collecting bribes. But after 2 weeks, they realized that it was the same old game. So I think...
just in addition, a lot of people, especially Nigerians, seem to believe that after the elections, you know, the cash that we've all been looking for would actually circulate.
No, that's sure. Like the president, the essence of the cash, of the naira redesign, principally, apart from, you know, managing inflation, I think about 3 weeks ago, the CBN governor was saying that we have already pulled out 4 points on our inflation index. But the success of the presidential election was a factor of the cash crunch. Principally, the president said it, even kidnapping for ransom, it has drastically reduced, because even if they kidnap now, you can't get cash. Money. It's a reality.
Even the transfers will not work.
The transfer, they don't even receive transfer, and the transfers are not even working.
That's right.
So, and we believe that after the election, yes, now there are some governors, and you see even why some of the governors are jittery, as if they care at all. It simply means that because, you know, they have stashed so much such cash to do whatever, to be for the Christmas during election, and the thing did not happen. I heard of a governor who has now, with tomorrow's election, they said that he has voted the all cash per polling unit. He lost tremendously during the last presidential election. Maybe he's trying to reincarnate this time around. So I think, like I said here, you know, despite the difficulty, the pains, and what have you, the cash crunch has given back Nigerians what they lost long ago. at least their votes count. That's why now some are using frozen chicken. Some are using spaghetti. You know,
they are inflating the economy. They are inflating the economy.
There are instances where some people are even sharing frozen.
Amazing. It's amazing what this whole Naira policy has done. We saw in places like Kaduna, in Oshun and in Ogun, where they were begging people to even collect the original. They said, no, it doesn't have any need. They will take it from us, But I hope someday we'll go past all of this, where we will respect the will and sanctity of the Nigerian people to choose whatever they like, regardless of what we think about it.
Sure.
We have this story on the front page of the Daily Trust, a sad one, which is a girl, 6, mistakes petrol for kerosene and burns herself while learning to cook. What's happening to parenting? And how do we even keep some of these flammable items that these children could reach them easily and practically almost set themselves ablaze?
But if you look at the age, it makes me, I don't know, Dashan, 6 is too young to learn those. I think maybe, so many factors are taking away the roles parents used to play. In those days, particularly where I come from, not many parents were working mothers. But now, you go out.
To make ends meet.
She goes out. So the kids were left with maybe some...
Another kid, perhaps?
As a nanny. A nanny that requires, that need to be nannied. There is anything like that, They need care. So that is it. So you see all this brutality, these avoidable accidents. But it's a reality that we cannot shy away from. But even at that, there should be, we should create an equilibrium. If the economic reality says that, okay, the both parents need to go out, at least an adult nanny, maybe a trained one, well-mannered one, whose background has been checked with guarantors. If you don't see her, you know where to
head.
To go out. If you need to be brought, so that these kids need to be monitored, and properly guided. But it's really pathetic. 6-year-old,
It's unfortunate, a sad one there. Thankfully, the life was not lost. We hope that she recovers from the degree of burn that may have been occasioned by that that accident. This is the much that we can bring to you today on the newspaper review. And we want to thank Nuruddin Abdallah for making it. I hope you heed all of the advice that he has offered. Your business is to go out and vote. Choose the leader after your heart, and do not make yourself an instrument to disrupt the process, and don't do anything that you will regret. We thank you very much for making it out here.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you next week. By then, all of these pressures would have been over,
and your cash available.
And your pocket will be stocked with cash. Thank you very much. We will see you at the top of the hour with more from Daybreak. Please stay with us.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Or really, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Good morning, Nigerian. Thank you for staying with us on Daybreak. It is still Trust TV, and it's the top of the hour this beautiful morning. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Thank you for staying with us.
I am Sunday Michael Ogu. It's a beautiful morning, and thanks for staying with us.
All right, with that, we'll take a look at some of the highlights at this hour. Fuel consumption hits 80 million liters daily. Subsidies skyrockets.
DSS is potent in Kano, not APC. This is coming from the NNPP.
Electricity vandals throw 14 just communities into darkness.
And now the details. The consumption of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, has risen to about 80 million liters daily, pushing up subsidy on the commodity to an estimated 484 billion monthly, going by the latest figures from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. An analysis of the PMS Weekly evacuation and dispatch data from March 4th to 10th, 2023, obtained from the NNPCL on Wednesday indicated that a total of 558.83 million liters of petrol was evacuated during the period, translating to an average daily consumption of 79.83 million liters. Around mid last month, the group executive of the NNPCL, Mele Kyari, said about 66 million liters of petrol was pumped daily into the market by the oil firm, as the company was spending about 202 billion on the average, 202 naira on the average on every liter consumed across the country. Since January till date, the cost of crude oil has revolved around $83 per barrel, while the official exchange rate has been about $460 per dollar, and crude oil price and foreign exchange rates are the major determinants of refined petroleum product cost, according to the operators. NNPC is the sole importer of petrol into Nigeria and has maintained this for several years. Other marketers of the commodity stopped its import due to the difficulty in accessing foreign exchange required for PMS purchase.
All right, the new Nigerian People's Party in Kano has alleged that its main opponent in Saturday's election is not the ruling APC, but the Department of State Services. Now, the party alleged that the service was working in cohort with the ruling party to subvert the will of the people, but it would not allow this to prevail. Speaking on behalf of the party, Bafa Bichi, a senatorial candidate of the party, said NNPP supporters will embark on a peaceful march across the city to protest against what they termed an illegal retaining of the Kano State Director of the DSS, whom he alleged was due for retirement 15 months ago. He said the protest became the last resort of the party because it has intelligence that the DSS boss was kept in office to assist the ruling APC in the forthcoming elections. The party also alleged that some tactical teams of the DSS have been deployed from Abuja and were being kept in hotels and safe houses to help perpetuate the plans. The party said it will carry out peaceful protests, and the DG of the DSS asks the state director to immediately proceed on retirement. Bichi said all the senator-elects, House of Assembly representatives, House of Representatives member-elects, and all candidates of the NNPP in the state will lead the protest on Thursday, except the president prevailed on the DG of the DSS to take action to compel the Kano DSS director to immediately proceed on retirement.
Interesting development there when you consider that the DSS DG is also from Kano. And moving on to other story, as many as 14 communities in Jos, the Plateau State capital, have been without electricity for months due to the activities of vandals. The affected communities spread within the Jos-Bukuru metropolis include Bukuru, Gura Top, New Abuja, Sabon Barki, Furaka, Kwang, Tudunwada, Apollo Crescent, and Dong. A resident of the New Abuja, John Ishaya, said the theft of transformer has been frequent in the last 6 months. The head corporate communications of Jos Electricity Distribution Company, Dr. Friday Elijah, who confirmed the incident to Daily Trust, said the company was getting frustrated by the activities of vandals. The Plateau State Command of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has, however, confirmed the arrest of 2 suspects in connection to vandalization of transformers in Gamawari community. The command's public relations officer, DSC Longbat Christantus, told Daily Trust that the command would henceforth intensify its surveillance on such criminals.
All right, with that, we'll take a look at some of our packages. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission has been charged to address issues of malfunction of beavers and late arrival of electoral materials and officials to polling units, which caused delay in the commencement of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. Now, stakeholders gave the charge at a one-day meeting convened by INEC to brainstorm on how to ensure credible, transparent, peaceful, and successful conduct of the 2023 governorship and state assemblies elections in Zamfara State. The report.
Concerned stakeholders pointed out noticeable lapses in the last presidential and National Assembly elections and want the Independent National Electoral Commission to address them in Saturday's governorship and states assemblies elections. They said the last-minute creation of new polling units left many voters confused while trying to locate their polling units, adding that the late commencement of the election dragged the process into the night in some parts of the state. Other issues which the stakeholders harped on were the lack of prompt response of security agencies to distress calls, indiscriminate usage of result sheets, lack of capacity of ad hoc staff to operate the bimodal voters accreditation system BVAS, as well as late arrival of electoral materials at polling units, among others.
We need these numbers to be on your social media handles to be printed and submitted to all political parties and the civil society organizations so that we can contact you immediately.
We have discovered the indiscriminate usage of certificate copies or replacement copies of the result sheets, especially here in the state capital.
We are here together. What Nigeria's duty and civic is for will assure the INEC is total and complete cooperation, working cooperation.
The Joint International Association of Persons Living with Disabilities, PWLD, reminded INEC of the promise to provide materials that will aid the deaf and visually impaired persons to vote in the 2023 general elections. The group said it, however, observed that the Commission did not make those materials available in most polling units during the presidential and National Assembly elections.
To appreciate the security forces in collaboration with the Commission for creating an easily accessible environment for our people with disability to cast their votes. So we really commend them for that.
The INEC National Commissioner in charge of Kebbi, Sokoto and Zamfara states, Muhammad Kala, commended security agencies and residents of the state for their support towards the peaceful and successful conduct of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. The INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner in Zamfara State, Babura Ahmed, said the Commission has noted the lapses recorded in the last elections and is poised to improve on them during the conduct of the governorship and state assemblies elections.
Is to thank the people of Zamfara State, the INEC, the security agencies for having just a very good and welcome election that has occurred during the presidential election.
The general consensus at this stakeholders meeting is that the security agencies should this time go beyond the usual assurances that it will provide adequate security and protection to voters by acting swiftly to respond to distress calls, which was observed as a challenge with security operatives in the presidential and National Assembly elections.
Moving on, the National Populations Commission says its digital housing and population census, billed to be conducted later in May this year, would be error-free. The Commission's Director of Public Affairs, Ishaka Yaya, says the Commission is doing everything technologically possible to make the 2023 digital census acceptable, meeting the best international standards. Noel Sampson brings us the report.
Population census was initially planned to hold in March, but postponement of election left government with no option than to shift the dates to May this year. Information and data obtained from census assists the government to plan for its citizens, hence reasons why it has to be error-free. Ishaka Yaya is Director of Public Affairs of the National Population Commission, and he explains why the exercise must be error-free.
We are going to conduct a digital census, like you have rightly observed. What that means is that we are going to limit human interference in the census process. The data will be collected using what we call the personal digital assistant, in which responses from respondents will be captured automatically into the tablet and will be transmitted for processing to the server and then further analysis and evaluation. And the way it is done is that, the sources of error in census are manifold. It can be undercounting, overcounting, and enumeration, double or multiple enumeration. The methodology we are going to adopt, will make it possible to eliminate all these sources of errors.
He also explained technologies deployed by the Commission to make the first digital census in Nigeria.
We have divided the whole landmass of Nigeria into enumeration areas that can be covered by a pair of enumerators. And also, the EAD, or what we call the enumeration area, has been done in such a way that every building, has been captured. So on the census day, the question that will be asked is that if any house is not counted, it must be accounted for. So it will be possible in the tablet with the enumerators, all the houses have been listed and they must ensure that they go to all those. That also means that they cannot go to one household twice.
The last official population census in Nigeria was conducted in 2006, and since then, successive administration could not conduct another exercise recommended after 10 years. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, with that, we'll take a quick breather, and when we return, we'll move on to our first topic of discussion. To stick around.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. This boat has set sail since 7. So if you're just joining us, you have missed quite a lot. But we'll find a way to make up with the quality conversations that will be coming up next. And for our first conversation this morning, we are looking at the economic activities. Despite the suppression of economic activities endured by Nigerians due to the scarcity of the redesigned Naira notes, the nation inflation figures rose in February to 21.91%, posing questions on whether the cashless policy introduced by the government achieved its goal. Owing to an increase in the cost of food and fuel, February Consumer Price Index posted a month-on-month change of 1.71%, a slower climb when compared with the 1.87% recorded in January. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, latest reports released yesterday, on a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 6.21% higher compared to the rate recorded in February 2022, which was 15.70%. This shows that the headline inflation rate increased in February when compared to the same month in the preceding year. We have in the studio a friend of the house, as always, Dr. Emeka Okengu, an economist, to discuss this development and the rising inflation amidst Naira scarcity. Thank you very much for joining us once again.
Pleasure.
I bet at a very short notice.
Thank you very much.
And eating into other very pressing engagements of yours. When these inflation figures came out, well, at first, the drivers of the redesign policy, whether it's the president or the CBN governor, adduced several reasons why Nigerians should have a buy-in. One of the several ones was the fact that they had hoped that it would take a chunk off inflation numbers and all of that. And then we saw the inflation nosedive slightly in December, which was looking like their projection was going to come true, but the reverse was the case in January. It shot up, and we were hoping that by February, when it had really beaten us so hard that people had given up on the use of the Naira, we had hoped that the indices would return different, but no, it continued the rise. And Nigerians are wondering, can we honestly say at this point that we have had any positive effect from this Naira redesign policy on the economy?
Well, the first, you just described one sector of the Nigerian economy, which is the formal sector. So all the statistics that have been reeling out, are statistics of the sector that you can mark. And remember that the formal sector of Nigeria constitutes less than 20% of the Nigerian economy or the Nigerian economy ecosystem. Now you're looking at the rail sector, which nobody is able to track and capture. I don't know if you mentioned that the food inflation is about 24%.
That's right.
Now this is in the formal markets. Now when you go into those informal markets or where you have the people who are unbanked, that's actually when the reality, begins to hit you. And I haven't put that as a rider. Now we come to the reasons you gave for the Naira redesign. I think the primary reason is not to check inflammatory measures. The primary reason was to bring back money into the banking system. Where you had 3.2 trillion, circulating, and only 600 billion of all that was within the banking system. Okay, so I think the first consideration was to be able to rein in, pull in, those excess of about 2.7 trillion. Okay, that was the first consideration. And then against those considerations, two elements came in. Element number one is that we are also going to be making certain that these monies are not going to be used for things that are untoward. And in that case, those untoward things came towards people stockpiling it. This is how the politics thing, the angle it came from. Okay, that people had kept money, over a very long period of time that they wanted to use in subverting the popular will of the people. And then the second was crime and criminality. So when you talk about inflation, which is what your question is, I needed for us to be able to establish this background, it simply has to do with your productive capacities. If you are not producing, there is no way. It will be like somebody who has HIV or hepatitis, and then you say, you know what we're going to do? Let us start praying. Prayer will go. Prayer is to restore your confidence that you can be healed. But the moment you require medical protocol, trust me, we need to go for that protocol and then support your healing process with prayer. You understand it? So it's what you now have is a question where you now have, the thing turned upside down. Okay, so first and foremost, we are even lucky. And again, like I said earlier, if you put the real numbers, we won't be talking 24%. We won't be talking 21%. Because first, remember that you're supposed to be juxtaposing people's expendable capital. Now, what it means is that for you to be able to now have expendable capital, you have to have it. Okay, so what about those who don't have this capital at all? And then, if you look at your salary, for instance, I want us to be practical about, trying to now put this thing into proper perspective. I don't know how much, you're earning, but let's put your salary at 300,000. And let us now say that you have about 6 or 7 dependents, mother, father, brother, sisters. And, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be sharing that money, equally amongst the 6 of them. Now, do you know what it means? You're actually going to be earning ultimately less than 4,000 naira, or 1,000 naira in a day. If you share that whole money amongst everybody. So, even you are not only poor, at your level of earning 300,000, you've become very vulnerable. So, I don't think we're just dealing with statistics, as it were, just like we're relying on statistics, we're going to do digital. Somebody just sent to me something this morning, and I say, please spare me. Oh, go out and do this. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, we're going to insure this and that. Talk is cheap.
Okay. All right, now reports actually say that Nigeria lost 20 trillion naira to the CBN governor's, naira policy. Now, what is the implication of this, for national development?
Lost to who? Where is the 20 trillion naira coming from? Where did they lose it to? You see, because a lot of people do not want to appreciate the fact that a cashless policy is good for everybody ultimately. Okay, and this cashless policy didn't start yesterday. But we're just used to, a week after that thing was introduced, you saw people throwing around money in parties. You saw it. Okay, so when you're talking about loss to what? Loss to who? Loss trading what? Loss saving what? That would be the primary question. I think the figure is very suspect. Against an economy that had 3.2 trillion circulating, where did the 20 trillion come? I hope it's not sounding like, the story of our missing $20 billion from oil. So, you see, sometimes people want to hype things to make it look more serious than it is. But having said that, remember that in my opening, I talked about 2 classes of people, if you may, or 2 economies. Okay, the formal economy, which somehow all of us are managing to survive in. And these days you'll be shocked that even these boys who are carrying jerry cans in fuels in jerry can have become a little innovative. You know, I'm talking about my personal experience.
That's right.
They now cluster around a POS person. Okay, you pay the POS person, and it begins to transfer to them. So that's for the formal economy. This can happen. But when you now talk about that informal economy, which you have allowed, or what you call the race sector, which you have allowed to disconnect totally and completely, this is where you have your issues. And unfortunately, this is where the bulk of our population is. If that's what you're talking about, madam, yes, it won't be 20 trillion in naira. It will be 20 trillion in value. Okay, because what it is you have done is that you have cut out more than 70%, you know, of your country, of your citizens, you know, from your financial inclusion, you know, circle.
We will be having another monetary policy committee meetings by Monday, Tuesday. In the last 3-4 meetings, we have seen them jack up the interest rates, and largely because they are not targeting inflation, which they feel like, as you have mentioned, has continued to shoot. Now, this is not abating. The last time they raised prices, some of your contemporaries economists argued that because the factors driving inflations are not something within their realms, that raising prices will not ultimately terminate if we put prices beyond the ordinary citizens. Now we have seen a raise with the inflation. In your opinion and your evaluations, are you looking at another raise in interest rates? What can we begin to do to support just an interest rate rise as a primary function of targeting?
Even if you lowered it, even if you made it zero, you won't still get these investments, because the first primary consideration, money is the biggest coward. Money is one thing that's I mean, if you had a bank, if you were managing director of a bank and your father was your customer and somebody said that bank is distressed, he'll probably be heading to the bank to take his money before calling you. Okay, so that is how money is. And I think the mistake we've made is to think that, you know, lending money is what grows business. No, that's not what grows business. What grows business is being able to develop a proper attitude. First and foremost, the statistics. Your business has to be statistically, you know, put together. Growing business development plans that are bankable. And again, there is something they call in development patient capital. And that patient capital is something that, no, we don't have any financial windows for it. And that's why most of the grants you see being granted are coming from outside windows. That is the kicker that is missing. Because the moment you give somebody a loan, the first consideration is that he needs to pay that loan back. And then for him to qualify to get that loan, a major consideration is that he has to be able to secure the loan against something that has a forced sale value, that has a value of more than 150% of his
actual borrowing.
Yes. You understand? So it's not the way to go. And that is why those who can borrow don't need the money. Those who need it can get it to borrow. So if you don't rejig it, and first and foremost, this is a country that has 53 million hectares of land.
Arable.
Less than 0.5% of it in use. We don't have one commercial farm. I'd gone into a program and they said, oh, the Ministry of Industry is busy building processing plants for Zobo, hibiscus, this, that. I said, okay, please, good idea. They want to build these plants. Now, can you show me one hibiscus plant or farm, okay, that goes more than 2 kilometers, as against where other people are building belts? So when people want to talk about what can bring down inflation, now you should talk about the days we were busy. Almost every land you could think that was free had either palm, tobacco, cocoa, rubber, not even cassava. Cassava came. No, you now had large plantations that were doing what they call volume that could unlock value. So it's if you ask me now to go and borrow, by the end of the day, what am I doing? I'm going to take that money to China to buy my machines. I'm going to probably be getting my raw materials from China. So you are helping to grow another economy because you are not looking at your STI. And what do I mean by that? You're not looking at your science, technology, and innovation as the basis of thinking and growing Nigeria. You'll be shocked that even the chairs you're sitting on now might be made by a Nigerian company, but every component of this chair is imported. Every. With all our whole wooded areas and our forestries. So until you begin to think, think development and not think, business. Now, you must be able to have that meeting point where development will now begin to meet business.
Okay. When you say these things, for average Nigerians, we are a bit at a loss. And so in our own case, is it a function of the government understanding that this is the way to go, or we cannot find the economic managers to direct us on this part? Because what we have basically done in the face of everything that has happened is continue to rely on the monetary authorities to even provide policy direction for the fiscal space. The trade space has completely even gone comatose. We only see them talking about AFTA and refining the AFTA policies without even pushing for what we are going to sell in the AFTA market space. So what exactly is our problem as a people?
A delink. The major problem is that you have a delink between the national and the subnationals vis-a-vis the utilization of resources. I give a very typical example. Federal government has promoted a policy they call NATIP. NATIP is about the faults. There was all these policies, agricultural revolution, this. But you're doing this and you don't have land. Okay? If you look at the whole agricultural lands owned by the federal government, you might give and take maybe 20,000 hectares of land, flung here and in between. The lands are in the states. Now, you are not aligning your agri policies, okay, with the policies of the states. So that when you're talking about the physical meeting, your financial policies, it begins to your monetary policy. There now begins to be this synergy that is seamless. So you can begin to now talk about what you call common shared infrastructure. So you're no longer talking about Zamfara State. You're talking about Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto, okay? Now driving towards Kaduna, Niger. So you now begin to build this economic belt that is now land-based, that is now people-based, that is now STI supported. But what do you have? A federal government that comes and says, oh, we want to diversify into agriculture. With which land? With which people? With which, what do they call it? Research institutes. Now, that's one. Now, two, you come to the mining sector. Okay, last time I was on the show here, they were showing some people carrying diggers and shovels and they were scratching the ground. And I asked the interviewer, why don't you please pull up a mine in Zambia? Now, what you're going to be seeing will be maybe at your first glance, 30 bulldozers. At the second glance, another 40 or 50 excavators. Okay? And at another glance, you'll be seeing a small airplane that's flying around the place. That's what a mine should look like. Because by African standards, a small mine is classified as a mine that has a value of $250 million. That's a small mine. So if you don't think properly, and I think the major thing is that you have very good people that write very flowery speeches for you. I am going to give everybody a job. I am going to do XYZ. I'm going to do ABC. Now, but there's what they call matching. You must be able to match skills with demands. And this is where your needs assessment, needs to be carried out. And I think that's where the problem is.
Okay, now, when it comes to the citizens, what can actually be done to, cushion the impact of the inflation on them? Because sometimes even when the inflation drops, it doesn't seem to reflect, especially when you go to the markets. And, according to the NBS statistics, the rate of the cost of foods actually it was responsible for the rise, is part responsible for the rise in inflation, especially when it comes to just staple foods like bread, cereal, yams, tubers, and all that. So what can be done to cushion the impact of inflation?
Again, we need to decouple. You're talking about citizens. There are also the masses. So which one are we talking about here?
It's because even when it comes to the inflation as well, there's a report that says Naira, fuel scarcity and inflation has pushed 24 million Nigerians into hunger. And, you know, even coupled with the, what do you call it, the CBN policy, you have so many people staying at home because they can't even, the fares have increased and they can't even go to work.
That's what I'm saying. So are we talking about the citizens or the masses?
They're all the same.
No, they're not. Okay, the citizens are those you know. The masses are the mob. Okay, the citizens are those you're able to capture in your formal structures. Okay, now the masses are those that you're talking about, madam. And the only way the masses can become citizens is statistics. Okay, and the best way to be able to get statistics is to be able to drill down, do what you call real-time evaluation of people. And the only way you can do that is to be able to build the institutions that can be able to pull this data on a real-time basis. Now, I'll give you a typical example. When we were born, birth and death were done at general hospitals that were at the local levels. Okay? Now, you had people, education inspectors and health inspectors were not state officials. They were officials of the local government systems. Now, with the disappearance, if you may, of a local, there's a total disconnect. First, I told you about the disconnect between the national and the subnational. Now, there is a total and even more, disruptive disconnect between the local governments where these 24 million people, again, a presumption. Because if I say to you, madam, show me the states there are, these 24 million people, who are they? So, because if you don't know them, how do you help them? And that's why I said to you that the major challenge we have is that we've not been able to draw data. Somebody says to you that Nigerians were 200 and something million. Where are they? And these are assumptions that must be corrected. And in trying to plan a census, we are not now also planning this census right. And let me tell you why I say so. It's not supposed to be an Abuja thing. The person that's supposed to be making this announcement should be, so have somebody at the state who is saying the same thing he's saying, have somebody local government who is saying the same thing he's saying, have somebody at the wards who is saying the same thing he's saying, so that you're not going to be doing it a bottom-up approach where the national begins to now do the oversight of now picking this data. Until you have that data subset, you are going to be just wishing things. And unfortunately, that's what we're doing.
Just a quick follow-up before we let Dr. go. It's the question she asked. We have seen all kinds of reports that is beginning to suggest the doomsday.
Yes.
We had flooding in 32 states of the 36 last year,
yes,
which impacted on food production.
Yes.
The insecurity is still there, which stopped farmers from showing up, even on the small percentage of arable lands that we seem to put into use.
Yes.
NIMET is saying we are going to have a repeat of that,
yes,
that flooding. In fact, they are saying the rains we have seen in Abuja are even a false start. People should not even bother going to the farms.
Yes.
If we are not producing, like you said, and there are no prospects we'll do anything different, if the government is now in a lull waiting for a new government to come in, is there anything we can do? Is there a low-hanging fruit? We are not even taking anything out of the windfall, sort of, occasioned by the Russian-Ukrainian crisis.
Beautiful.
What can we do to avert a doomsday?
A very simple thing. You talked about the floods. The floods were not only rain-based. The floods were as a consequence of the release of water from Lago Dam in Cameroon, and they give us enough notice. Now, all you need to do, that thing has been in the pipeline. There was a dam, a dam that was supposed to have been built somewhere in Bauchi, that was supposed to be capturing that water and then channeling it back into our tributaries and rivers. That would have reduced that problem to a very large extent. I think it's called the Hafsin Dam or something dam. That's the name of our dam. It was designed about 30 years ago. Nobody has ever done anything about it. Now, people keep talking about farm. Nobody does the kind of farm we do anymore because of climate change. What climate change has done is that you wake up in the morning and it seems it's about to rain, and in the next 2 hours, you want to jump into a river because your body is boiling. That's the effects of climate change. Now, what people are doing is that there's a place they call Ibiza in Spain. Now, I want you to probably Google Ibiza. After Ibiza is supposed to be some entertainment place, but 40 kilometers
away from Ibiza,
driving away from Ibiza on 2 sides of the road, you're going to be seeing greenhouses. Imagine a situation where from here to Lokoja, you're driving by the road, you're seeing greenhouses lined up, pepper, tomato, radish, onions, cucumber, name it, veggies. And then at the end of that place or behind it, you're seeing ranches that are now using, the waste from those veggies to be able to now grow our livestock. What do you think will happen? I didn't say go and do it in Zamfara. Abuja alone will feed Africa. So it's all about us not thinking things through. It's all about us, everybody sitting in a room and then thinking. That's one problem. The second one is now the lack of synergies between MDAs. You will be very, very amazed and shocked that a lot of these critical agencies that are supposed to be aligning don't have any kind of relationship. And then the budgetary system and the expenditure system even makes it worse. This one is doing this at level 4. The same thing somebody has done at level 4, somebody is starting as preliminary. So I think that's what those are the issues.
Interesting. Very insightful conversations where we have had with Dr. Okengu. Putting a spotlight on what we need to do correctly, what we need to start rethinking, and the knowledge we need to start discarding, as it were, that are no longer useful to 21st century governance, if you like. I want to thank you very much for finding time to be here.
Pleasure.
And I hope when we come knocking again, you will make time for us to continue to provide this perspective, and hopefully somebody who needs to take critical steps about what we need to do correctly is listening to you this morning. And even our institutions, we can begin to unpack whatever it is that we're putting out as knowledge in the 21st century. Once again, thank you very much for coming.
Sunday. Thank you for having me.
We will take a short break at this point. When we return, we'll be looking at the governorship polls right here in the studio. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. We are on to our second conversation this morning, and that conversation will be geared towards the governorship elections that comes up in another 24 hours. Excuse me. The 2023 governorship and state assembly elections will hold tomorrow, the 18th of March, concurrent with the elections to every state house of assembly. And to discuss INEC compliance with Electoral Act in conducting elections is Dengiefa Angalapu. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Researcher at the Center for Democracy and Development. Please help us with that name again so that I would not have murdered it.
Yeah, so the name is Dengiefa Angalapu.
Dengiefa Angalapu. You're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
We have seen the first rounds of elections, as it were. We are gearing in for the second round. And I know that the Election Analysis Center has been following a lot of development pre-election, within the election period, and of course, post-election analysis. With your monitoring, would you say that we are ready, as it were, to go into tomorrow's election, given all that needs to be done ahead of that elections tomorrow?
Yeah, so really, for us, it is contextual, and it is based on, 5 framings, really. So we are talking about, some determinants that will really affect the elections. Before the presidential elections, we had the 5 I's, and then, of course, we framed our conversations around that. And going to the governorship elections, we've also had some framings, looking at some of the projections and then looking at some of the happenings in the presidential elections. So for us, really, we are looking at first identity. We are looking at how identity will play out. For many persons, identity has ended with the presidential elections. But from our findings, it is still something that it's still very relevant even in the state elections.
So when you say identity, what exactly are you implying?
Yeah, so for identity, what we are talking about, first we are talking about ethnicity, the role ethnicity will play. We are also talking about generational. We are talking about gender issues. We are talking about indigenous and settler issues and all of that. So it's whatever framings that someone can really identify with. So if you look at the governorship elections that are coming up, for many, because we don't have the tripartite system where we have, the Labour Party, the candidate being from the Igbo ethnic extractions. We don't have the PDP candidate being from the Hausa Fulani extraction and all of that. And then, of course, the APC candidate being from the south, where they think it's over. But really, what people don't understand is that Nigeria is made up of 250 ethnic groups, or even more, as some must have postulated. So when you get to the state level, it is where ethnic politics comes to bear. Now, so if you look at the interesting thing about governorship elections, is the fact that these ethnic groups are not far away. They are close by, so they can either unite for good or for bad. So, for example, if you feel hatred, it is easy for someone, in a particular community with different identities to have a clash. And it is also easier for them to really come together to unite. So it's something that really comes to play, and that is why over the years, if you've noticed in governorship elections, that is where you see a lot of most of the very violent cases that occur. So it is something that we are really monitoring, and you can also see, of course, the rhetoric is now happening very, very much in Lagos. So you can see the ethnic dimension that the politics is taking, the hate speech that are going on, the Igbos versus the Hausa, the settlers and indigenous debate and all of that. It is something that, even though both candidates are, of Yoruba extractions, people are now going to dig through the history of persons to say, one person married an Igbo person, and then, so these things are really coming up. We also see the generational in many states also. People are, actually challenging the old guards, in many states. And of course, if we look at the gender too, it is also something that it is really worrisome. Of course, Nigeria has had, a decline in terms of gender representation. Thankfully, we have the APC governorship candidate from Adabawa, who is a female. And we hope that, maybe by efforts, and then by maybe with the efforts of women groups, maybe she might likely emerge as the governor. But if you look at the results in the senatorial elections, you will see that women have had a decline. Just three women. So that is also fueling lots of grievances among female groups. So identity is really a very, very strong factor. That is one. Yes.
Okay. Now, with most of the challenges that actually marred the presidential election, a lot of Nigerians don't seem to have confidence in INEC, especially when it comes to technology, that's the IRF and the beavers. And right now, we're seeing that there is a reconfiguration of the beavers. Now, what can INEC actually do to avoid a repeat of the same thing that happened during the presidential elections?
Okay, yeah, so thank you very much. That's a very interesting question, and that would now lead us to my second framing, and that is institutional preparedness. So we looked at INEC really, and the one fundamental thing that we saw with the last election was the absence of strategic crisis communication. Yes. So what we saw was that although INEC was having challenges with HIREP, INEC did not communicate appropriately. So it created some situations where fake news and disinformation rented the air. So it delegitimized INEC to a very large extent. So we are expecting that this time they will come out to communicate their challenges truthfully, and so Nigerians can even manage their expectations. I mean, we are even lucky because we are even really lucky that we did not have election violence or post-election violence as many as envisaged, because really Nigeria had a very very high expectations, and it was really botched. So we are expecting that at this time INEC will do a lot of preparation in terms of logistics. We understand that some things are beyond their control. So for example, you have infrastructural issues. I mean, I am a Bayelsan, and if you go to Bayelsa, you know that if you are going to the Brass local government, you will be on the river for a very long time.
6 hours.
Yeah. So you can imagine INEC staff, taking that kind of journey. It's something that is, and then you also have network issues. We know that half of the country, looking at the last report, half of the country does not have network. So these are challenges that INEC needs to deal with. And a third factor is really about the training. So most issues that came up that day was INEC staff forgetting password and all of that, and that really dealt on the issue of training. So they need to really train their staff properly, especially because most of the staff will now be put at danger. Because now people are saying, okay, you have to upload these results before you leave here. And it's so those are the front lines now will be put at danger, because people want to see this time that you must do your work. So they must be trained properly and also secure their staff. So INEC needs to prepare. So three key things. First, they must communicate appropriately and tell us their challenges. Let us know as Nigerians what to expect and what not to expect. And secondly is the aspect of training. They have to train their staff appropriately and let them know that they should be non-partisan. Of course, we've had issues. The Abia State rec has been suspended. Sokoto State rec has been suspended. All of this has created some kind of distrust in INEC already. So we don't want a further repeat of that, because we want an election that people can have confidence in. So we need them to train their staff properly and also deal with some of the infrastructural issues. If the HIREP is not going to work, please tell Nigerians now, so that we can argue about that, we can discuss about that, and even look for a way forward. So you don't tell us it's not going to work at the eve of the elections or when we want to transmit elections. At that time, already expectations are so high. So high. So I think INEC has to manage expectations by telling us the truth and then communicating to us appropriately.
Telling us the truth and communicating. INEC has been doing a lot of talking since the presidential election. They've had the time to do that, by the way. A whopping 2 weeks or 3 in between. I mean, 2 weeks in between the last election and this governorship election. From what they have said, because you've talked about the need to communicate properly so that we manage expectations, does it appear that they understand what these problems, these challenges were, and do you think they have given sufficient assurances to sort of reignite the kind of passion we saw with the presidential election? Because we have all agreed that governance at the local level is even far more critical than it is at the center, and we don't seem to be paying sufficient attention to the state elections. Do you think they have communicated sufficiently enough to ignite that kind of passion ahead of tomorrow's election?
Well, I think they've tried. They've communicated appropriately, but it is just coming at a time when people have so much distrust for them, so to believe them is now even difficult. But really, beyond the communication, it is for them to work now. So if you've lost the confidence of people, the only way to come back is to work and work appropriately. So they have to really work and deliver and make Nigerians know that whatever that happened has happened, but it wasn't really intentional. This is really the time to show it. But really, what Nigerians should also know is that conducting a free, fair, and credible elections is beyond beavers, is beyond IREF. It is about really the people. The quality of the elites we have, the character of the value system, predominant value system in the state. Because, I mean, at the end, you cannot digitize integrity, really. So we saw how we celebrated the beavers, but we also still saw how people were able to sabotage the beavers. Because, why? Because of the value system. And elections are the mirror through which you see, you know, how healthy a democracy is in a country. So it is something that we should cherish. It is something that we should, you know, go. I mean, we have countries like Egypt and some other countries that are not so technological as us, but they are conducting elections, really. So somebody can even take sensitive materials, go to his house, sleep, wake up, and then go to the polls, and then people are voting. It is a character issue, really. So beyond INEC, we should also see that this election is, in fact, we all are INEC, really. We all are INEC, and we should ensure that having a credible election, it's a legacy, it's a pride as every Nigerian. So we should work towards that, really. That's really my postulation.
Thank you very much. We've been talking to Dangiefa Angalapu. I hope I got it correct.
Yeah, that was
at this time. Dangiefa Angalapu is a researcher with the Center for Democracy and Development, and he has said quite a number of things that we should take home this morning. We are all INEC, and therefore we all have a responsibility for a free, peaceful, and credible election. And he said, very importantly, one that resonates with me, that election is the prism through which you measure how much a democracy has developed. We need to show to the world that we're a people of peace, we're a people of process, and we're a people of system. I want to thank you very much for showing up here. Angalapu doesn't look anything like what his brain is. And now I believe strongly in the comments that Dynamax come in small pack. If you start unpacking Angalapu, I'm sure we will get more to keep him here in the studio for another 5 hours. But this is the much that time would allow us to take this morning. I want to thank you very much. And we hope that somewhere in between the election or afterwards, we will get you back here to help us see through the prism of analysis and data how much we are fed and the areas that we can possibly improve for future election. Nigeria is here to stay. Elections will come and go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful program this morning, as we had promised at the inception. We took up smoothly. We've had a very safe flight, it appears, in the company of my co-pilot, and we have landed peacefully. But that's not all from Trust TV this morning. Stay tuned to all other interesting packages that are lined up for you for today. If you have missed out of any on our morning show, you can catch up with our social media handle, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to get all of the development from today. I am Sunday Michael Ogo. Have a peaceful and successful elections.
I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Thanks for watching.